silence. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Slack, and this is Forrest Hanson. Welcome to West Coast Live. And how was your week? I'm actually asking you, Forrest. How was your week?
Well, you were actually asking me. That wasn't like a rhetorical question.
I mean, it was, but I was so ready because of your jelly that I needed to know about your week.
I mean, my week's been great. I was busy over the weekend. I did this whole thing with Michelle Crozier down in the South Bay. We taught a little workshop series thing, and it was a great time. That was just a little while ago. And now Swimtacular is this coming weekend, and I am profoundly looking forward to that. So that should be a great time.
Yeah, I wish I could be there. It's my mother's birthday, turns out. So, oh man, that's still one of my favorite things. I'll just go next year. It'll be a thing. So some of you got the message this week that Forrest and I took a week off. It really, truly had nothing to do with the show other than we thought it was a good time to punctuate the stuff we've already done. We'd had a couple great guests, and we'd done a bunch of stuff that I for one, was pretty proud of. And so we're back this week. Consider this the start of a new season, and we'll be bringing you a really chill but special episode. Not this weekend, but the following weekend at Emerald City Swing. And by special, I mean it's probably going to be just fraught with errors. It's going to be great.
Yeah. We're going to... We haven't 100% cleared this with the event yet, just to be totally clear. But what we would like to do is start doing tests of doing the show actually at an event and being able to have guests and do other fun things like that, which, should be a great time.
Yeah. So as of now, when I say we're doing it at the event, it's more like we might do it in the room. So if people have room parties, you can have West Coast Live parties. Can that be a thing? Can we trademark? Anyway, there's only one question that I really latched onto from last week or the week before maybe, and I just want to address it before we start talking about like everything else that we're going to go over today. But Jody Solberg wrote, I'd love to see a show about how to do the competition circuit on a shoestring budget. Some people have come through the ranks quickly. How are they able to afford? So the shoestring budget thing is just spend as little money as possible. Like, don't bring all of your meals with you. Like, treat it like you would any other holy shit, I'm poor and I can't afford food kind of moment. Instead of eating at the expensive bar, find out what around you is cheap. If there's a grocery store, go there. Make your own food. Peanut butter and jelly is a wonderful thing if you have no money. As far as probably what you're asking, I would say what worked for me was when you're not at the convention, train up so you can just win passes to things, which is a cheap-ass way of answering your question. Or volunteer. Like, get on those volunteer spots as fast as you possibly can. Aside from that, I don't know any, hacks to get into conventions for free. Blackmail is really cool. And,
yeah, there's, I think there's a little bit of a misnomer that happens when you see people, really flying through the ranks recently. We've talked about it. Several people in a couple different episodes who've really kind of soared. And there's this idea of they're going to all these events and how are they affording this? And look, different people have different ways of affording things, right? Some people have a job that pays them well. Some people are able to finance it through their dancing. as we've talked about previously, for instance, the episode with Ben, it is very, very challenging to finance your competition habit purely from your dancing. Like
Yeah.
conventions, particularly when you're starting out, are just going to come out of pocket 90% ish of the time. There are people who have been doing this dance for years and years and years, who still don't get their passes comped to events, even if they're a high level all star, who still don't get lessons at events, even if they're a high level all star, who still don't make teaching staffs. Um, so the idea that like you hit this kind of competitive point and then all of a sudden it becomes less expensive to go to events, I think is just like a total red herring.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a real thing. So the reality is that dance events are expensive, and there are some things that you can do to kind of moderate it, as you're saying. Try to do it as cheaply as possible in terms of your personal budgeting throughout the weekend, volunteer for events, good stuff like that. But at the end of the day, flights cost money. So
Yeah.
if you're going to travel to enough events where you got to get into an airplane on a regular basis, you're paying money to go.
Yeah.
Even if you're one of these people who's really sailing through.
And even then, yeah, I mean, you could treat it like we used to in college. I mean, I didn't do the West Coast circuit then. I was doing like it's essentially the same thing regardless of what style you do. So, get a bunch of buddies together who are of like mind, carpool everywhere that you possibly
Sure,
can.
totally.
Keep it regional as much as you can, and then save up and do everything on the cheap as much as you can if you want to get out of your region. But like Forrest is saying, this is not a cheap ass hobby. It takes money to go to anything. Unfortunately, in terms of like how do you want to improve, go out all the time, find somebody that you really like to dance with and take them somewhere that's not just your local West Coast venue. That's great and all, but like the average person probably does West Coast once or twice a week. And I'm just making up numbers here. But I don't hear about too many people who are really serious and go out every single night with the express, you know, want to practice. It's you may go out, but you're probably gonna like sit out a few songs or just
Yeah,
noodle
totally.
around.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's about it. What do you got for us? Anything?
Well, that we started us off on a very sobering note. You're gonna have to spend a lot of money to get good at this dance. That's not really
You don't have
entirely
to
what we're
spend
saying.
a ton of money to
Yeah.
get good at the dance, but like to
Oh,
go
for
to a
sure. They're
convention,
totally
oof.
different things.
Yeah,
And that's kind of the thing, right? Is that like just one more second on that because this has been kind of like a pet point recently
sure.
for me, and that's that I think there are some people who kind of treat the point system like it's a race,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a race.
Yeah.
There is no endpoint when you get to All Star. I was actually really deceived by this. Like you know,
Oh yeah.
I thought that, yeah, I thought that when I got to All Star, there would be like I'd be able to redeem my points for something.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm collecting all these points. I should redeem them for something, right? I thought there would be like one of those vending machines, like in like an arcade where you could like hand your tickets in and then just get fabulous prizes back. And much to my chagrin, not the case. So I kind of had this startling revelation when I made it, which was that, oh wait, like now I actually have to get good at dancing, because I'm competing against people who are like actually really good at dancing. And at the time, had been kind of making it through on the back of technique from other dances and good stuff like that. And it just wasn't cutting it anymore. So I had to actually improve. And I would strongly advocate to people to work on your dancing outside of the context of a convention so that when you do go to a convention, you can maximize your returns from that convention, whether that be in terms of your individual learning or if you are attempting to move up in dance level so that your level is at a point where you can move up in dance level. Like
Yeah.
most people are not stuck because they don't go to enough connections or conventions. Most people are stuck because they're not good enough at dancing yet.
Yeah.
And that's like sometimes kind of a tough revelation for people, but it just is what it is. Like that's the reality most of the time. There's a
Yeah.
lot of luck in contests. We've talked about it extensively, but like ultimately you got to be good enough to make the next level. And that means that if you're dancing an intermediate, you need to be good enough to be a competitive advanced dancer likely before you're going to make it out of intermediate.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's kind of my spiel on that.
Yeah.
So
And like that follow up question is always, well, how do I get like what does it mean to be good enough, or how do I actually
yeah,
measure
sure.
my worth or whatever?
That's
Good.
all that's all for another episode, really,
Yeah. So we'll talk about that another day when we have so and so.
Hmm.
Spoiler alert: we have other guests. I don't know who's coming, but Oh, that's not true. I
Hey,
know.
do you want to talk about who's coming?
Can
Because that's a
we?
smooth little
Yeah, that's
segue.
that. I like that. Yeah. We have confirmed Benmo, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right?
we will have our if it's if it's meaningful to you, we will have our first U.S. Open champion
Yeah.
uh, on the program, and Benmo is going to be joining us for a show on the 28th, on August 28th. He's going to be coming on, and we're going to talk to him about a lot of interesting stuff. In particular, what I really want to ask him is what is that grind like leading up to the U.S. Open?
Oh yeah.
Because so many people talk about it. They talk about like the US Open grind, but so few of us will ever get to experience that at like the highest level.
Yeah.
And obviously, he has intimate experience with that. And so I would just love to get his take on it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of just want Ben to talk about his various skills because he was.
Sure.
I used to hang out with him a lot more than I do now. He happened to be friends with everybody in Corvallis, and that was the crew that I was going with for a little bit. And he's good at everything. It's bizarre.
Yeah. He's
Like,
a talented boy.
yeah. So like most everything that he ends up doing for, and he will obviously go into better detail about his life than I would. But everything he ends up doing for his routines, in large part, he handles. Like, there's a lot of his choreography; it's all him, or like his music. He cuts everything. He's cutting music for like multiple couples at any given time. It's he's an incredible guy. If you have the time in real life, anybody should go and freaking talk to him. But he probably
Yeah,
doesn't
and
have
I
the
mean,
time to talk to you. Let's be real. So that's why
being
we bring
real
him on the
about it,
show.
it's awfully helpful to have a partner who's as amazing as Victoria
Oh
is.
God, yeah.
Like doesn't certainly doesn't hurt things,
I,
but there you go.
I forget that like Victoria has ever been in the same division as me.
Oh, I drew her in advance. I was
Yeah,
very happy.
yeah. Uh, when I didn't understand a couple things about like, I was an asshole. Let's be real. Uh, she's very strong. Like she's a Mack truck when she wants to be, and she uses that to such great advantage. But I did back in the day, like I had no idea how to handle that. I was so used to everybody being super feather light because still coming from Lindy
Sure.
Hop. Like when you, yeah, it's a whole to do. Anyway, um, I don't know many times in my West Coast career where I felt like I was just like holding on for dear life and just like, I hope she turns this into something cool because I really don't know anything. Yay. Yeah.
Now Victoria's a total powerhouse.
She's a beast.
So we got Ben flying in our at on the 28th. That's August 28th. Then at some other point, we haven't like 100% set a date. I'm sort of shooting for the 14th, but she has let to kind of 100% confirm or deny this that we're going to have Michelle Crozier on. Um, I would assume that most of you know who Michelle is, but if you don't, Michelle is an all-star dancer from the Bay Area, and she has really built this dance in the South Bay around San Jose. Not from nothing. She took over somebody else's dance, but it's really been an exercise in community building, and now it's one of the most engaged groups of people that I've personally seen in the Bay Area. They're wonderful to teach and to work with, and she's just so committed to that community. And I personally wanted to have her on to talk about community building in general because that's an enormous focus of hers, and she's also just really good at it. So and we get a lot of questions on the show, like, what if I'm from an area that doesn't necessarily have a lot of like top tier dancers, or what can I do to try to build a community in my area? And she is like the perfect person to talk to for a lot of that because she's done it herself. So those are two people that we know we have coming up. There are a couple other people that we're kind of hoping to figure out some time with. But we haven't nailed anyone
You
down.
should just start throwing out names and see which one sticks.
See which one gets the most thumbs
Yeah,
up.
why not?
Another person that we've been talking to a bit and that I would love to have is Alyssa Glanville. She's expressed some serious interest, and there are Brandy's mentioned it in kind of an oblique sort of way, but now technically speaking, Andrew,
Yeah.
there are competitors now. They have Wine Coast Swing, and they are stepping. They are stepping on the West Coast live territory. So I can get a little
How?
turf war started personally.
How are they?
No, I want it. I want a turf war.
I
That's
watched.
it.
Okay.
West Coast live, Wine Coast Swing. Only one can survive. It's like Highlander. Two enter, only one leaves.
Well, we are the longest running West
We
Coast
are
Live
the
talk.
longest running. That's right, and we will
So
cling to that title.
they can have their Brandy Tobiases with her, I don't know, world
Yeah, and they're
championships,
Robert
the
Roystons with their
Roystons,
multiple world championships, but we'll
whatever.
be
He's like,
over
I
here.
was on Broadway. Yeah, who wasn't? I've walked on a street. That's fine.
It's close enough,
It's
right?
close to the. Well, I didn't know that they were still doing it. Like, there's only access to one episode. Did a new one come out or something?
Yeah, I think that they just posted like a teaser
Oh,
for this one. They're doing kind of like more longer form, so I think that
yeah.
they're probably doing some video editing or stuff, and
All right.
that's what's kind of taking a little while. It's not quite the same as you and me, buddy. We do the low rent version.
I
We
love the
just
low
show
rent,
up.
man. I like the slapdash myself. Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Jenny Cooper, who's in the chat right now. She is the event director for Emerald City Swing. Forrest and I will both be at the convention in 2 weeks now. Can't believe it's coming so quick. It's a brand new convention. If you have not, if you know nothing about the Bend, Oregon dance crew, Jenny is like sort of the mom behind everything there. And at the very least, come to Bend and dance at some point. But definitely check out Emerald City Swing. Uh, yeah, I'm friggin' stoked. If nothing else, I get to see Forrest. So I don't know.
It's a mad perk right
I'm
there.
I'm really trying to find a segue into this thing, but I don't have one. So let's talk about how the show's gone so far. So
Sure.
if you're in the this is not going to be like a hard hitting episode. Those of you in the chat, this is a really great opportunity for you guys to voice your opinion on like what you'd like to see on the show and what you've liked so far, what maybe hasn't worked all that well so far. You'd like to see different. Don't be a jerk, but like, yeah, let's talk about positives that you would like to see on this thing. So, Forrest, will you start us off? Let's talk about the show.
Yeah, sure. So I think that again, like more conversational episode, we're mostly just hanging out here.
Yeah,
Um, I think that one of the things that I've really wanted to kind of take to the next level in terms of what we're doing here is clarity about, of course, exactly when we're going live for starters. We've tried a
yeah.
lot of different times. Um, and I think that we've settled on this one as like the kind of baseline one that we sort of modify from. But if it turns out that more people show up for our Wednesday shows than our Tuesday shows, well, then guess what? We're going to be on Wednesday. Um, with that being said, like scheduling out in advance sort of what the content of the episode is going to be. So we actually did that for the next month. So the idea is at the moment, next week, I'm not going to be here just so that people know ahead of time. And Andrew is going to do another video recap show.
Well,
Um,
yeah, if it lets me.
yeah, if
Just
assuming technology allows this to happen and that we don't get like 20 takedown complaints from various music companies,
it's awesome.
we're yeah, we're gonna try to do another kind of video recap show because those have been super interesting in the
You know what?
past.
I really want to find like if you want your video critiqued, how about that? Or like, and I'll do my
Mm-hmm.
very best to focus on just what's like what really works about your dancing, yeah, or like
Sure.
whatever. And that can be a clip of you in a competition, like a Jack and Jill, where you don't pick anything, or it can be your routine. Like normally, I charge a lot of money for that sort of thing, and this would be really fun to do with the community. So if you're interested in all, let me know. Post that in the comments.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. So if you're interested in kind of being quote unquote critiqued on next week's show, then please shoot us a message, and that sounds like a great way to do it. Week after that, hopefully we'll have a guest. I'm kind of hoping for Michelle, but if she can't make it, we'll figure something else out.
Yeah,
Week after that, we're going to do a Q&A show.
yeah,
So we're going to take questions from you guys in between now and then and just kind of go through those questions. They can be anonymous or not anonymous. If you want us to make them anonymous, we could probably do that. Of course, we'll know it's from you, but maybe no one else will. And then the week after that is the Benmo show. That's on the 28th.
yeah.
So that's kind of our next month. That's the plan. It should be pretty consistently Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If we have to move a date, we'll let you guys know with a little bit of advanced warning.
Yeah.
So that's me trying to hold my commitment to myself to be a little bit more consistent about letting people know what's going on.
I think it's fabulous, man. I mean, literally, like those of you, I think everybody kind of knows this, but like the show is just, I wanted to talk about stuff
Mhm.
that people maybe were uncomfortable with, or maybe they had opinions about that they didn't have a venue to talk about it. So hence the show. It's very, like I said before, it's very slapdash, and Forrest is the reason that it's becoming legitimate at all. If I had my way, it'd be like every other podcast where it's just like, what do you want to talk about today? Oh, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy and James Gunn. Yeah, let's do that. Sure, that's a big deal in the news. Why the
Oh
hell not?
man. All of a sudden it becomes the social issues show.
I just I have a thing that
Hmm.
anytime that I see somebody spark something in the comments, I really like to mess with them. Not in a significant way, not like I'm gonna call them out, but it's usually something like that, like blah 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 communication, or like sins from your past or something like that. Yeah, yeah, ah man, the new Guardians movie, right? Am I right? And then
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally gotcha. I totally appreciate it for starters,
uh-huh.
and it's largely because I can't help myself. So I'm the circle into the circular hole guy, and Andrew is the I'm gonna get this, hammer and any peg will fit the folds that I damn well want it to guy. And I think that it's a beautiful marriage here, so I think it works wonderfully well. Because Lord knows I need somebody to kind of loosen me up sometimes. Um, We've already got some great ideas in the comments. There were a couple mentions of like a top judge to come on, which I think would be great. If we could get somebody who travels and judges a lot, that would be awesome, like specifically for a show around judging. People,
I actually have an
I think
idea.
that
I
judging
have an
is.
ideal for that.
Oh yeah, what were you thinking?
Here's my issue is I don't know if a lot of other people consider him a top judge, but I love Jim Minty, something fierce.
I think Minty's great. Yeah, and he goes to a lot of events and he does a lot of judging. I think that people are like kind of cautious talking about judging a lot.
Why
I
is
think
I
that
don't
it's one of
understand why that
those.
is. It's not like
I
they're giving
mean,
you a secret formula or saying like
yeah,
everyone sucks. Like it seems kind of benign.
yeah. I mean, I think that talking about like this is my opinion is okay. I think that when you start to like reflect on judging as a whole, sometimes just people have like very strong opinions about it, and everyone feels
Sure.
a little awkward being like X person is a good or a bad judge because we don't have a rubric we're going from. So it's
Right.
very tough to like show your work if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
it's all just kind of mystery numbers, and therefore I think that it gets a little uncomfortable like talking about it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, but my opinion of it's like anything. If especially a judge though is if you don't like a judge because they like X, they like this style of dancing more, or they scored you low because maybe you weren't as traditional or whatever the hell that means.
Mm,
That's one thing. But if it's like my judge didn't really look, he just kind of like marked off some shit on his paper, like that's completely different. Because I've worked with plenty of people that I don't really need to mention, who just guessed. And I, for one, me, like when I started, I was so terrified. I was like 19 judging a breakdancing competition. Spoiler, I don't know how to do that. So, and I was just kind of like, yeah, yeah, that guy. He was spinning, right? There's five criteria. Fuck it. Like, so yeah, I don't understand people thinking good judge, bad judge, unless they're like
mm.
just not doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like, do you have a consistent criteria on which you are judging, and are you applying those criteria
Sure.
consistently? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that what happens a lot is, I mean, there was kind of this. So there are several like um, discussion groups on Facebook, and in one of these discussion groups, there was this thread about like judging, and particularly, it was a question was asked where like, do the All Stars notice if an All Star is judging the All Star division?
Of course they do.
And the short answer is yes, they 100% do, and the slightly longer is yes, they do, and they often make jokes about it. But also, what happens is that most of the time, if like you have a level of respect for that person, like as a competitor, it's that you accept their mark. Like
Yeah.
if I think that somebody is a good judge, I don't really care if I'm being like I'm trying to think of a good example of somebody who's like all-star-ish who judges all-star divisions.
Well, Sturgeon when he was All Star like that, he
Sure.
frequently do
Yeah.
that. So
Sturgeon when he was on like the
Brad or
All-Star Champ
yeah,
cusp would kind of do that, and like Tony when he was on the All-Star
yeah.
Champ cusp, but like he dances up more often now, so I don't know if it's fair to refer to him as like an All-Star, but he's like in that cuspy, I'm not totally in one division, totally in another zone. I think that's probably
Would
fair
you
to
say
say.
he's
Um,
bicuspy? Huh?
oh.
Go on.
Anyway, so like he'll judge an all-star division or something. Like I'm not bothered by that. I'm not
Oh,
bothered by that at all because like I respect these people's opinions and I think that they're good judges. And so like sure, what's the problem? What really gets noticed is when you get people into the mix that I refer to as like inactives. They're people who haven't been active in the community for a little while. They're people who don't travel. They're people who maybe don't compete or never really competed,
yeah.
or if they did, it was never really at a high level. And you see people like that judging champions more often than you see them judging all stars, ironically.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that you really start to notice people not take the mark seriously. And as a event director, my fear would not be having an all-star judging all-stars. My fear would be having a judge, irrespective of level, who is not taken seriously by the competitors in that division.
Sure.
Um,
Which happens
and a
a
lot.
lot.
Like
Yeah.
it happens more often than you probably think it does,
Yeah.
particularly at the higher levels.
Yeah. But what are you gonna do? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that. I kind of hate the concept that like, oh, this guy's you know that the ultimately it just runs down to opinion for me, and I feel like none of this matters. Like
Hmm.
competing, like being a former pretty staunch competitor in everything that I've ever done, it doesn't matter. It's so fleeting. It doesn't matter unless you're like
Sure.
aiming to go and be the world champion, something extremely
Mhm.
tangible like that. Not like you know, I got third place at whatever rinky-dink convention. You know, if you're trying to make this a career and you need those accolades in order to get the jobs, that makes total sense. But ultimately, whatever.
Sure. And also this is a community where no one
Shit.
remembers who placed where at the
Yeah.
next convention. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, so there, I don't know, like pick a convention. Like I have no idea who won Mad Jam this year.
Victor?
And I watched all the dances from Mad Jam, but
Yeah.
I have no idea who won. I
Yeah.
know which dances I liked,
Yeah.
you know, like so it's kind of a different thing, right? And we just have a community where like Jack and Jill and Strictly results are just not a big part of like on a week to week basis, or not really a big part on how people are considered. What gets
Yeah.
considered is when you have consistency, when you have a
Yeah.
consistent stretch where the same seven people are grabbing every placement in champions, like that definitely gets noticed. Like those
Yeah.
people get elevated. Or when you see somebody break into a new division at a high level on a consistent basis for the first time. Like I remember when, like the first time that I think it was the Champions of Champions at Phoenix, and like Bryn made the final,
Oh, yeah.
and it was like this like whoa moment, you know, like she kind of broke through in that way. Or I remember when Alyssa was first kind of moving up into that universe, and she started finally in Champions consistently.
Yeah.
Like that got noticed. But can I remember like a single of her placements during that run? No, I can't. I can remember some of the dances that I liked, and that distinction I think is really important.
And I like to play the game of like well, I like to go and research the biggest names and see what they actually got at these conventions. Because you have
Mm-hmm.
this, because for example, like Michael Kilbasa blew through the ranks, and I thought that was at the time before like getting to know him, I thought that was just because like oh he won absolutely everything, and then you can ask him is just no I was a professional in another style and I didn't really want to stay in novice forever, so I competed, I did well, and then I asked if it would be appropriate to move up. So there's this huge gap if
Mm-hmm.
you go and look at them, and even there's placings are all over the place. Kyle's placings are all over the place for the past like
Yeah.
41 years or however long he's been doing
I
this.
mean, yeah, like these people obviously they do really well, but we're in a dance where the best dancer does not always win.
Yeah,
And it's okay for us to say that. Like it's okay for us to just admit that this is a dance style where you can be the best dancer in a spotlight division. Like this is a division where all of the judges are watching you 100% of the time.
yeah,
and still not win with a great consistency. You can go a year without winning while being the best dancer every time.
Yeah.
So like just because of the luck of the draw aspect and luck of the draw musically, luck of the draw in terms of which judges are in the panel. Like there's so much
Your
variability that
partner,
I kind
like,
of yeah,
how's the
I just find all
floor?
the griping about judging kind of shrug worthy.
Yeah,
So that's
it's
just my take.
I'm 100% agree with you. Uh, Big shout out to Victor, who's in the audience tonight today.
Hey, what's up, Victor?
Those of you that don't know, and I think everybody does, Victor was on the show a couple weeks ago, and it was one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. Victor's a G, and I'm so happy you were here, man. Thank you for being in the chat consistently, like, and then like you just feel like you're actually a part of the show. Brian Sforzo wrote, "I've always wondered if local favoritism is a thing in judging for the sake of stirring stuff up." Okay, if you're in
I
your
like
home,
it.
yeah, if you're in your hometown, will you do better? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have people in your hometown who hate you? Because that happens.
That's a great response. That's a great response. I love that.
It depends, man. It's the same thing. It's similar to what Forrest is saying. Like some people are petty. So if you have a lot of interpersonal relationships with someone, they're more inclined to do that shit when they're at home. Typically, it's not like you're on the national or regional or international stage where like someone could find out that you were shady. Uh, but
That's really funny. I like that.
yeah, that's personally. Do I do better at home? There's no competitions here for
Mm.
All Star Champ stuff. I would love it. It'd be awesome, or even just like an open division would be kind of fun, I guess. But frequently, I end up asking to be an MC or a judge or a DJ for those things. So I would say hell no because I don't even get the opportunity.
Sure. I mean, my kind of like 1 second take on that, and I
Yeah,
think it's a complicated question. I think the
it's a
answer,
great. I
as you're
love
kind
that
of,
question.
I think it's a great question. And again, like we're just kind of comfortable just talking about this because why not?
Yeah,
I think the short answer is probably yes.
yeah,
And here's what I mean by that short answer is that like, look, if you are, let's say you're competing in, I don't know, like I think this is particularly actually the case for more like regional events. And so not so much like the Mad Jams and the Swingtaculars and the Jack and Jill Ramas, like events where people from everywhere are traveling to them,
yeah,
because the panel of judges are people who are from everywhere. Like so, there is no kind of consensus perspective. But if you have a panel of judges that is all from the like say the Bay Area, they are extremely familiar with all of the Bay Area dancers.
yeah,
So they walk to the floor inherently. They can't not walk to the floor with an expectation of what they're going to see from various people.
yeah,
So I think that they probably you can argue that that's an advantage, or you can argue that that's a disadvantage. I would argue in general that that's an advantage in a field as variable as a Jack and Jill. Because you just get more consistency. Particularly, it's an advantage if you're a good dancer and they're used to seeing you dance well. But if you're just dropping into it, without any kind of context from the judges, then maybe you blow them away, because they're going to watch you. They're going to go out of their way to be like, I don't know that guy. I'm definitely going to spend enough time watching you to get a sense of what you're doing.
yeah,
So I think that it's kind of like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think in general it's probably a little bit of an advantage just because of that familiarity.
yeah. That was your 1 second response.
I know, and it was like 10 minutes,
That's
but I can't
awesome.
help myself, man. I don't know what to tell you. I can't help myself.
Yeah, you're good with words. Don't ever let anybody
I'm
tell you otherwise.
good with blabbering.
Uh, uh, so, oh, and another thing. This is random, and I'm sorry. Bob Tucker is, I think, still in the chat. Bob, I think, I don't remember where he was living beforehand, but he recently moved back to Portland, and I'm pretty sure he's moving again. I don't know. But I just want to say how lucky, on behalf of Portland, we are that you're back for a little bit, buddy. Big fan
Oh,
of
that's
Bob
so
Tucker.
adorable.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, and here's something embarrassing about Bob. This is great. Uh, Back in the day when I was sort of in and out of the West Coast scene, I didn't really get solid until I think I met you, Forrest, actually.
Hmm.
But we used to like Bob Tucker was known for being like a second Jordan Frisbee. Like everything that Bob did at the time was so Jordan, it wasn't even funny. Like it
Yeah,
was
I
a
know, I know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody can track down, they're hard to find, but if anybody can track down clips from like Bridgetown Swing, I'd say 2010, something like that, with Bob Tucker in them, you'll just like it's bizarre. I want to do like a side by side comparison because oh, and there actually this is a really cool thing. If like you want to train on a budget, YouTube is again an amazing tool. It won't
Oh,
teach you
for
the
sure.
finer points, but uh, you have the opportunity to go and find somebody that you really like. Like Bob loved Jordan's dancing, and that was his base. So now he's
Mm,
different. Now he's refined his own style, and it's his own baby. But like, go do that. Find someone
hmm
that you just dig on. Uh, and for me, like it was Maxence and Kyle. I just ripped stuff off of them forever, uh, and just regurgitate and slowly sink into who you are as a human being in your dancing, and it will change your life. Brian writes, sometimes I've had my local friends judges judge me way worse because I wasn't doing what they taught me in my private. Yeah,
Yeah, this like 100%. My harshest judges are people who know me, like as a person, or people I've taken lessons with.
yeah. I prefer to dance with those people in the competition. I just ask them like Brandy. It works out so much better than having to worry about her judging me if I'm just dancing in her
hmm
division. So Katrina writes, I tend to place better outside of Portland.
Yeah,
Yeah. Andrew Sinclair writes, I'm certain I have some of those videos. Andrew, I need those videos. If you can like text them to me or don't text me. Send them to me via the internet in some fashion. Okay, so Forrest, if you could, what do you want from the show? Like, if you could add a thing or have a segment or a guest or like we've talked about guests a lot. So anything
yeah.
else? Like, like
Um, hmm. That's a really big question. I think that like one of the things that we've talked about with the show so far is about on the one hand there are kind of like infinite things to talk about. On the other hand, you don't want to just regurgitate like the same spiels every time.
sure,
And I can feel for myself because like I have my own opinions and I try to keep those opinions fluid and I try to be open to kind of alternatives of how you think about stuff. But at the end of the day, they're kind of my opinions. And once we hit, you know, judging and like the basics of getting good at a dance and which convention we happen to like that weekend, what else is there for a show like this? And continuing to find the kind of what else is there, whether
yeah,
that's talking about the music or that's talking about things outside of West Coast specifically that kind of inspire us or making us think. Um, and a lot of that inspiration does come from the people we have on the show, for sure,
sure,
because that becomes like a third host, a new variable that gets introduced to it. Like we had a very different conversation when Shanti was on the show than we do when we're just kind of sitting here spitballing with each other.
sure,
And likewise for all of our other guests. So I think that's kind of where I want to keep on moving it is being able to bring interesting conversations to people
yeah,
that they would not necessarily get to experience without the benefit of a platform like this. And I think that that's kind of the secret sauce. And continuing to just have the sort of format and the energy of those kind of convention conversations that you have with people that like happen in hotel rooms when no one's judging each other or mostly no one's judging each other and
yeah.
kind
Okay,
of continue to bring that into the light a little bit.
yeah,
So that's definitely my goal for it.
yeah.
How about you, buddy?
Similar.
Hmm
I want this to help people talk more because my big old gripe about the West Coast scene is because it's so small. People are afraid to say things, but they still talk a lot about some good and some bad. And I'm frankly just thinking about a lot of the bitching and moaning that could be handled just by getting a lot of issues out there and getting them less taboo and anything from you know the I don't know why I'm trying to censor myself, but like the whole Luis Crespo fucking insanity from some years
Sure.
back, like this thing's that big to just like let's talk about your dancing, like that's it, like hey man that was really cool what you did, let's do, can you
hmm
show me that move, like anything that benign, that simple.
Totally.
I just want people to. I want to foster communication. I think is a better way of putting it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And
Uh,
sorry, go on.
oh no, if you have another point here, then go ahead. I was gonna transition us too abruptly.
Yeah, no, please.
Yeah, so just kind of in light of that, maybe slightly moving away from that, it feels like we've gotten some good feedback, and there were a few points at least raised in the chat. We got a couple volunteers already for a dance critique video extravaganza session, so that should be a fun time, and it sounds like we'll at least have some material for that.
Yeah.
The What I was kind of thinking of just then is in topics like slightly outside of the West Coast scene, but sort of related, is that obviously you've been in the middle of a dance production recently.
Yep.
So congratulations on that
Thank
for
you.
starters.
It's my favorite thing I've ever done, and I'm barely in it. So
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's a. Would you mind like taking 1 second to explain what it is real quick if people happen to not know?
yeah, totally. I'm very lucky to be a part of this company called the Mad Reckless. It was a Vegas show that was brought to sort of the greater California area, and then is finally up here in Portland. It's a high energy, crazy high energy, high intensity cabaret show, and our director is former Broadway dancer, he's former lots of stuff. Like he was in Thriller with Michael Jackson and among about a million other things. Yeah, he's legit. It would take me a
That's
while
dope.
to rattle off everything, and I'm sure I would miss a bunch of stuff. The point being is, this is the first show that he wanted to bring to Portland. He luckily moved here, and he's got others that he wants to bring, and I'm the guy who took over his part. So it's a lot of responsibility, and
What a beast.
I love this show. The funny thing is, like, he likes to be really cloak and dagger and like, oh, I've got so many big plans for you. It's like, cool. I'd like to know what they are so I can plan my life. And he never says anything.
Sure.
And this first show, like, I'm not in a ton of it. Like, I am sort of I don't know. I'm like a prop more than anything else. So I'm lifting people and moving things, and I go here and then I'm out, and then I'm here and then I'm out, and it's still awesome. But he keeps just hinting at other stuff, and it's fucking nerve wracking. I cannot lie. So we had our opening night the other night, and it went very, very well. And my absolute favorite moment was actually when we're off stage and we're all celebrating, and none of us had any beer in like a month or so because reasons, and we're all getting drunk. And this local dancer slash producer, I guess, who's very notorious for things like not paying his dancers and charging his dancers to be in his shows. It's like an audition fee, but much shadier. And he doesn't handle any costuming. He's amazing, really. He comes up to one of our cast members and is just like, "You are so amazing. You're incredible. I love you. When are you gonna dance for me? When are you gonna dance for me?" And it's one of those, like, I'm behind him looking at her face, and she's just like, "What?" It's like, "Yes, I thank you for coming tonight. It was so good. It was a good moment."
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, to feel petty about a petty person is it's a good time.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great thing that you're doing. I think that's awesome that you're doing it.
Yep.
And what I was sort of wondering about is that that's been a really big push for me recently. Like that's been
Yeah.
a lot of rehearsal. That's been a lot of effort, and I think that for me is certainly something that we can take into kind of the West Coastification of it. Is how, like, what do you do to maintain your consistency, either with your actual performance itself or just like with your practice regimen around it or whatever you're doing with your training? Because for me, that's always the thing that I find hardest, and I think that many people find hardest, is consistently kind of showing up, whether it's showing up to your practice or showing up to the actual rehearsal or showing up to the performance. And when I say showing up, I don't mean just like appearing, but I mean fully appearing
Right.
as well as you can.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that honestly, like at the core of it, getting good at dancing is kind of straightforward. And often what most people struggle with is not understanding like the what they should be doing. It's actually doing it. I feel that's probably the case for life in general.
Yeah.
And you've gotten very good at the actual doing. So I don't know if there's something that you find particularly helpful for that, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, it's a job. Like
Sure.
I need money, and also this it's a very tangible thing for me to say I get to train with my hero.
Mm.
That's it. That's all I care about with this show. Like I will do my absolute best because I'm a professional, but I show up because I get to work with Daniel Brown. You know, I, and then the great benefit around that is the cast that we have, and yes, I get to perform, and that's really cool. But it's really just that one goal, that thing that I was working toward for the past six some odd years, I attained, and it feels great. Like
Hmm.
it just feels good to work with him, and it's making me better at everything than I've ever been before. So for West Coast, you need a tangible, you know, and that can be, or you need a goal. You don't need a tangible. You need something. So whether that's
Hmm.
like, I want to be better so I can make this my living. I want to, I want to be better just for the sake of being better. I want to be better because I want to whip that guy's ass. You know, you need something to motivate you. And if you don't have it, that's how you get people like, well, frankly, like me who dip in and out of the scene so often.
Hmm.
There's really not a thing in West Coast right now other than like like when I go to these things, I want to hang out with Forrest, I want to hang out with Delancey. I have like a set group of people. I made this show. I wanted to do this show because I wanted to feel close to West Coast again, to be honest.
Mm.
Be 100% honest because I like it. And in the back of my head, there was like maybe it'll get picked up in some way and it will let me go to conventions and I will get to see Forrest and so and so. But if you're just here and you're just coasting and you think that everything is going to come to you and everything's going to feel good, just like in life, nothing's going to happen. You know, be conscious about your decisions, work at your shit. I don't know. Sorry,
No, I
that
think
was long
that's
winded.
no. I thought that was great. I think that that was a good encapsulation of it, and to kind of summarize that, what you're really referring to is that like it's about consistency. If you want to
Yeah,
get good at anything, like showing up is the first step. It's not the only step, but it's the first step,
sure
and it's a big
helps.
one. Um, and I think that also like what happens sometimes a little bit in what I think happens a little bit in this community is that people get really, really all in for a period of time, and then they kind of burn themselves out. Um, and it kind of connects to what I was mentioning earlier about that idea of like there's this race to get points, and then you get to All Star, and you realize that your
Yeah,
points don't redeem for anything. You know,
we
like
need to
you
make a
you
system.
run, yeah, you run out of brick in the yellow brick road, and you're like, well, now what?
Yeah,
Um, and there's this like just intensity and this rush initially, as opposed to kind of more of a focus on progression and on sort of growth mindset about it, for lack of a better way of putting it.
yeah,
Like the idea that my goal is not to win, my goal is to get better.
yeah,
And if I get better, then I win.
yeah.
And I think that that kind of progressive focus is a really critical part of maintaining like a positive relationship with this dance over time.
No question. I mean, in order to, what we're talking about here is like how everybody's wired just through whether it's, I don't want to get into it. I'm going to get really, really mad really, really quick. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I had this really long conversation the other day, and for some reason I can't seem to calm down about it. It's just this idea of like, why am I not already here? Why am I not so good? And I struggle with stuff like that with like my flexibility. I've never been flexible, but now I have to shut my mouth
Mm-hmm.
and really work on it. I think I've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very
Mm-hmm.
small thing, but you get people like, why am I not popular? Why don't I have enough money? Why am I not winning? It's, I've done it. Instead of just like, I didn't do this, I don't have this. Okay, I will work toward this. I will figure out how to work toward this, and I will do that. You know, working for the sake of working. It's a very not American mindset anymore, and it's starting to trend. I There are places where it is like I would
Mm.
say the popular like what's shoved in your face media wise is like look at how fabulous everyone is, not like look at all the great fucking work these people are doing. over and over. And look, let's talk about why it feels so good to do that. It's like my gripe with this is going to be great because I'll piss someone off. It's like my gripe I made about the discussion around the snap heard round the world.
Sure, yeah.
Just that, like, yes, that moment is awesome, but I sure wish people would talk about like everything that they were doing that led up to it, so that wasn't just like a cool, he hit a beat, she hit a beat, you know. Let's talk about what goes into the hot dogs.
No, totally.
Anyway, I don't want to talk about it. So I don't have anything useful to say about it. I'm just going to be like, people suck because they're not willing to work and whine, and that's not productive at all. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah, let's pull something from the comments.
Sure.
Sean,
I mean to Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
oh, please, what were you going to say, Forrest?
Well, I was just going to add one final like coda onto that again because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
This this is a perspective that could wander me into a little bit of trouble, but what I would say is that within reason, I basically try to personally adopt a perspective around my dancing of just like radical responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the healthier ways to approach it personally. Um, Particularly because in West Coast Swing it is so easy to make a lot of excuses for things because of all the variability that is in the dance that we've talked about ad nauseum, you know, with song partner, et cetera, et cetera. Because of that, I think that it's remarkably simplifying to just assume that, or not assume, but to operate from a baseline of something being entirely your responsibility.
Right.
Your performance of a dance being entirely your responsibility, not the focus on my partner did X and it messed me up, but my partner did X, why could I have done to have responded better?
Yeah.
Or the song was X and I don't like an X song, so therefore I danced poorly. And reframing that to the song was X, how could I have interpreted that song in a way that could have won that contest? Or what can I do in my practice regime so that I get better at dancing to song X?
Yeah.
Like that just reframing of it, like my partner was Y and Y is bad at dancing, so we had a bad dance.
Yeah.
Okay, well, like my partner was Y, and what are their traits as a dancer that make it so that I can't dance with them very well?
Yeah.
And how can I get better at dancing with somebody who has those traits?
Yeah.
You know, like just constantly kind of, and really aggressively, honestly, like very aggressively trying to reframe things in that context, I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
And is very, very helpful and positive in terms of kind of maintaining long-term growth.
I agree. And so does Sue Young. That's awesome.
Hey,
So, a quick side story about that and just my personal experience. Last year at Swingtacular, I drew Chantel Pianetta, who at the time I was like stressed beyond belief for multiple reasons, and I just couldn't read her because her default jam is to calm down and like wait for
and like
cues.
really be very here and wait for you and just kind of be expansive and listen. Yeah, totally.
So the whole time we were just like trying to read each other, and I just kept screwing up over and over and again. I was like, and so I get behind. I think it was you that I complained to. It was you or Elizabeth. I can't remember. And I was like, God, she cannot dance. I don't like dancing with her.
And I was just like, Chantel's actually my favorite person.
I was like, really? She's your favorite? Really?
Yeah, like,
it's like, but she doesn't. She
yeah,
does. I was just
totally.
like, but she doesn't do anything. Her connection's just so weird to me. And then 7 months go by, and I dance with her again. And at first of all, I see all the videos of her trouncing the competition.
Yeah, just like smashing people.
Just it's
totally.
incredible. I'm like, even that weekend, like the very next person she danced with, I was like, oh, I get it now. Oh, I'm a terrible human being. Cool. All right. Just making sure.
Wouldn't go that far, but I feel
No, that's pretty shitty to just assume like, well, she's awful. Like it was an all-star champs division. I should have just been like, something might be off at, maybe we're not compatible. Like that is the worst that should have been. Not, ooh, gross. Like,
yeah, totally.
and now she's one of my top 5 dancers. Like it's the stupidest thing in the world. So
I love how your top 5 dancers list just keeps on
she's
adding
consistent.
People to it.
She's
it's
on
the
there.
top 78 dancers at this point. I love it. I'm so happy with it.
She and Mia and Brandy are consistent. Delancey, the number 5, it sort of depends on what I'm feeling that day. So
Sure,
maybe
sure,
that
yeah.
number five expands. Okay,
I think it's
migrates.
great, man. I love it. It's my favorite running gag of the show is Andrew's top five dancers.
We're gonna make. I'm gonna make. Actually, Katrina, can you make a
Like top
shirt?
season.
It's just a list of my top fives. I
And
don't
it
think you
just
have enough
and
fabric.
it just says like names and they're all just slash top going down. And it just keeps on just down and down and down. The
Yeah,
print gets smaller and smaller as you get to the bottom of the shirt. Oh my God, it would be like the credits in Star Wars. I love it. This is the best idea we've had.
that'll be great. That's what I'm gonna do. I'll add a credit sequence to this show. It'll be 5.5 hours long.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, and then Forrest's top five will just be concise. Just these five.
Yeah, it's just like five champions. It's
Yeah,
like super boring. And there you go. Yeah. I don't
but
know.
that actually
Uh,
that brings me back to talking about judging and that sort of thing. Is
sure.
like when I judge, and it's a prelim, I'm the nicest person in the world, and I'm like, why do I have to pick? You're all so
Yeah.
lovely. And then when we get to finals,
Like everyone's terrible. Yeah.
oh god,
I do the exact same
okay,
thing.
good, thank God. I'm like,
No, I think that everyone
oh
is the best dancer in the world in prelims, and then a spotlight happens, and I'm like, why can no one
yeah,
dance? Yeah, no, I think that honestly, I just think that it's because spotlights are hard. And spotlights are like not they're not what our dance is built to do. And
yeah.
this is like a whole other conversation, and we're kind of wandering towards the
You
end of
don't think
this.
that they're designed to do spotlight, really?
Not at all.
Huh.
Oh God, no. No, am I crazy? Is that like
I don't think
a
you're crazy. I'd love to hear your opinions. Like that's awesome.
oh
Well, because
yeah, no,
because the dance
I think
comes from
that
like
I think our
Hollywood
dance is a
swing.
horrible spotlight dance. Yeah.
Huh. It was designed to be filmed.
Poorly, I guess.